Actually, it's not really a crap ton compared to the actual amount total of NES games they made. They made over like 800. Okay, so let's get started. Galaga. I'm pretty much going to have to almost speedrun these unless I have something to say. Base is loaded. Remote control. Yeah, all of these NES games, most of these NES games were actually my dad's. And he passed them on to me. So that's the reason why there's so many. He just went through like a several year phase just collecting NES games, just any of them, but it got to the point where the place that he was buying a lot of these games was just kind of going dry on having games in stock. Pretty much any game he saw that he didn't own that wasn't too expensive or if it was worth the price. Also Battle Tank, which I have the Super Nintendo version. So many baseball games. He actually likes baseball for the most part. Oof. Stealth. Huh. Super Jeopardy. Skater Die 2. It's kind of in rough condition. Also, we have some unlicensed NES games. It's pretty interesting. I remember I've looked through a lot of these NES games, and even now I look at some of these games and I'm like, really? We have that? WrestleMania, Jeopardy, Goal. What the heck? Anticipation, I only recognize that game because of James Sesame Street. Super Off-Road. Tetris 2. And there's Joust. I think this is Joust. It is Joust. Yeah, that was just a small percentage of all the games, so let me move this aside. Okay, here comes the next batch of NES games. You have To the Earth, Captain Skyhawk. That's actually one of the first NES games we got when starting the collection. Top Secret, a basketball game, Mad Max. I actually tried playing a little bit of that. It's not good. Pinball. I don't even remember this game. Pinball. We actually have Pinball. Again, it's hard to remember because he kept up with all this stuff. Don't even recognize that game. Kid Nicky. Funny thing about this game is that he was actually really close to beating it, but the final boss was too difficult, and I always made fun of my dad about it. It's like, Dad, you gotta beat Kid Nicky. And he's like, no. MC Kids. Me and my dad actually talked about that game recently. Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle. What else? V-Ball. Star Voyager. Another one of the first NES games, like the first 4 NES games we ever collected. Casino Kid. Trick Shooting. I think we actually have the box to that game. World Cup. Tennis. Baseball Stars. Did say SNK. Paperboy. Was this Car Warriors 2? And Bass. A lot of Bass games. Okay. Honestly, it might almost take 2 videos to do the NES games because there's just so many. So I have an idea for this video and for the second part. POW! Also SNK. Gorilla? Also SNK. Heavy Shreddin'. I don't even know if that's what it said. Wrestling. Championship Bowling. Is this? Nope. RBI Baseball. Another unlicensed game. Yeah, again, I don't know if you can really hear the music in the background. It's just Metroid music. Kings of the Beach. More wrestling. Jordan Bird. Hoops. Burger Time. Sorry if I'm kind of just rushing through it. With this many NES games, like, the thing is, like, I think almost 30% of my games are all NES, so it's taken me this long just to get to these games, and there's still so many left. Super Bowl. I will mention the total in the last video, and these are some games that were part of the stack that are actually really good games. Some of them were my favorites, like Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. It's kind of one of those gym games that it has its flaws, but it's great. Star Tropics has a lot of flaws, but it's very good. Also, Star Tropics 2, Zoda's Revenge. This came out in 1994, very late. The only other 1994 NES game I can think of is Warrior Woods, which was the last licensed NES game. DuckTales, Woo, Gremlins 2. This is actually a very good game. And Kid Icarus, very stressful but very decent. Okay, on to the next batch. Yeah, I just wanted to show this is what's on my screen. Okay. I think the video is almost over. I can't remember what's the next compilation song. Anyway, these next batch of NES games are all... are they... Yeah, all of them are at least worth talking about. So, got Mega Man 6. In my opinion, my second favorite of the 6 Mega Man games. Ninja Gaiden 2. This is actually my... it's probably my second favorite. For a long time, it was my favorite NES game. I actually beat this game without dying. That was a huge achievement. TMNT3, The Manhattan Project. Not as good as Turtles in Time, but very good for NES beat-em-up Turtles. Super Mario Bros. 3. I don't like the original NES Mario Bros. 3. I think the best version to me is the GBA Super Mario Bros. 3. It fixes all my complaints about it. What else? Oh, Mario Bros. Well, Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Bros. 2. This is actually my dad's second favorite game of all time. Zelda 2. It's one of my least favorite Zeldas, but a lot of people say it sucks. I think it's actually good. Zelda 1. Now this game's great. It's aged, but I still love it. Whoops, sorry games. Castlevania 1. I actually recently... Yeah, okay, wait, what's the next video? Oh, it's Pokemon. It's Pokemon. Sorry, I know that's, like, out of topic, but... Yeah, I recently played Castlevania 1 and 3. I love the Castlevania series. But I played it on the Castlevania collection to be able to have better footage. However, I didn't play Castlevania 2 because it's very different. It's kind of like Zelda 2, where it's like a 2D adventure game. What are some other games? Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom. My dad actually paid $25 for this, and yeah, I remember a few years ago this game was like $60, and now it jumped to like over 100. It's actually a really good game. I wish I could take better care of my games because most of these games are in my closet, and although it's away from dust, it's a little bit colder in my closet, which I guess that's a good thing, but there's been some problems. Like with the ants a while back, and like leakage on the floor. Even though my games are away from it, my shelves are actually a little damaged over time from me moving them, so I don't know, I'm just worried. I wish I could take better care of my games. I really do. I really, really mean it. I really wish I can take better care of them. Karate Kid. TMNT2, the arcade game. Super C. You got Predator, starring this guy. Ninja Gaiden 1, which is my dad's third favorite game of all time. He said he's beaten this game over 100 times. And then, of course, my dad's favorite game ever, all of them, is Blaster Master. He's beaten this game more than I can even remember. Funny story is that my dad said when he was a kid playing this, his dad actually almost took this game away from him because he saw the cover of this boss and he looked at this game as demonic. Pretty funny story. Alright, time for the next batch. Alright, I take it back. I think I'm just going to keep showing off the NES games until I'm done, so it's going to have to be broken up into 2 parts. Next is Contra, which, yes, has Arnold Schwarzenegger and, what was his name again? What was his name? Sylvester Stallone. I've seen a lot of his movies. Mega Man 3. Double Dragon 2, which I actually did. The one thing I have to point out is, I've actually, in terms of the total number of NES games I've beaten this too, this game is extremely hard. I actually have legitimately beaten, I think, a total of 83 NES games. This is not counting the few Famicom games I've beaten, just American games. Like, I've beaten this too. Very, very underrated. This is a great NES game. Dragon Power. This is very underrated. This is the hardest NES game I have ever conquered. And that's saying a lot. I've beaten Silver Surfer, I've beaten Ghosts and Goblins, and that's definitely saying a lot. Yeah, a lot of the games you're seeing, as well as the games you saw in the last batch, I also conquered most of them. Wizards and Warriors, Mickey Mousecapade, I also beat that one. Yeah, I went through an NES phase, and I still want to conquer more NES games. Actually, let me look really quickly. Yeah, pretty much most of the games I'm going to show right now in this batch I have beaten. And Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Not the fake Mr. Dream, no, the actual, real deal Mike Tyson. Got Strider. Got Russian Attack, which is one of the hardest NES games I ever beaten. It has everything you can possibly imagine of what makes NES games very frustrating. Metal Gear, starring Kyle Reese from The Terminator. This game I didn't beat. I tried really hard. Codename Viper. I don't know if you can see. There's also Tetris. Dragon Warrior, which is Dragon Quest. It's kind of how I got into the Dragon Quest games, just because I didn't realize Dragon Warrior was actually Dragon Quest. The first Bomberman, he looks a little different. Xanadu, which there's actually someone that I'm following that is streaming Xanadu, or maybe they finished it, but this is actually a pretty good game. I conquered it a while ago. That was my dad's game. Metroid, similar to Zelda 1, it has its aged and flaws, but I like the original Metroid. And then there is Tiny Toons Adventures, which is actually a really good and very difficult game. Next batch. Okay, my back is hurting a little bit. Okay, what's next? Mega Man 4. By this point, this might be my favorite NES game. After beating it without taking any damage, I have a new perspective of it. Monster Party, surprisingly good. Cobra Command. This is actually a very hard NES game. That's my dad's game. Mighty Bomb Jack. I actually bought some of these games. Batman. Very good movie license game. The Little Mermaid. That one's a very easy game. Jaws. I like the reference that game is in Back to the Future too. Bart vs. Space Mutants. I actually beat this game. It is very annoying. Double Dragon. Karnov. This is definitely a dad game. Dream Master. This is one of those games that looks really cool, and it's also actually based off an anime movie, which feels very Disney fitting. Get over here. Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Again, I'm really worried about these games because NES and even SNES over time, I feel like is aging over time. Crystallis. This is actually a really good NES game if it wasn't for a few major problems. Clash of Demon Heads. This game I really want to beat soon. There are still plenty of NES games. Ooh. Adventures of Bayou Billy. I put so many hours a few years ago trying to beat this. I haven't. This game is just too much. Bart vs. the World. I've never beaten it. Total Recall. This game pushed my sanity, but I did beat it. And let me just mention, I have beaten this game authentically on the cartridge without any cheating, and that's what makes it very stressful. Rat Racer 2, Heavy Barrel, and Renegade. Okay, I think that's like half the NES games, so stick in for part 2 where I go through the rest of the NES games.